Hey everyone, wanted to let you all know that it's basically a remake of my two-part Defending Assassin's Creed 3 video I made a long time ago. While I still like those two videos, I wanted to remake it and do like a proper video talking about Assassin's Creed 3. And, I also wanted to add some, historic information about, some events, some characters, and, stuff that happened in this game, just so we can, just add that historical, information and everything. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. Assassin's Creed 3 is my favorite Assassin's Creed game and one of my favorite games of all time. It was probably my first Assassin's Creed game I played, and I really loved it and became a fan of the franchise. And even with the other games in the franchise, I still love and think Assassin's Creed 3 is my favorite. I love the gameplay, I love the story, I love the characters, and I do think Assassin's Creed 3 wasn't appreciated when it came out. And, while it has gotten some love, I still think it is underrated. So, I will be mostly using the Xbox 360 version of Assassin's Creed 3 because I do not like the Assassin's Creed 3 remastered version, and I think Ubisoft put zero effort into it. And personally, I think the 360 version just looks better. However, there will be one spot where I will use the remastered version, which I'll let you know when that's coming up. Which, talk about the graphics of this game, I still think this game looks great. Whether you are walking around Boston or New York or the frontier, this game just looks great, and I love it. Especially, when it snows, the game just looks so beautiful. Which, this game does a great job of showing what America during the 1700s looked like, with the buildings and how the people dressed, and even with the powder wigs they all had on for some reason. Like, seriously, I would never understand why that was in fashion. I will say that the cities in this game, they don't feel that alive, honestly, which is a shame, because, I do like running around and being in Boston or New York, even though, New York is extremely annoying, and I'll get to that. So, the gameplay is different than how it was in the previous games before this one, where, in Assassin's Creed 1 or the Ezio games, you have to hold RT and A in order to free run. In Assassin's Creed 3, all you have to do is hold down RT. And, you don't have to worry about falling over, because Connor will actually push people to the side as he's running, which is so much better. I don't know how many times I fell over while just trying to free run in the older Assassin's Creed games. Combat is also different, where in, the earlier games where you just held RT and then the counter with the hidden blade to get a kill, and every other weapon was basically worthless. Well, in Assassin's Creed 3, all you have to do is hit B to counter, and then you can use any weapon to counter kill, which, me personally, I mainly use the tomahawk when I'm Connor, and when I'm Haytham, I use the sword. Which, this game has, normal weapons, heavy weapons, and, because it's set in the 1700s, and, gunpowder was founded, years before, you can use firearms like the flintlock pistols and muskets, and as Connor, you do have a bow and arrow, which I will say that I just mainly use a tomahawk, because I do think is the best weapon in Assassin's Creed. I think it's the best weapon Assassin's Creed has ever had. And sometimes the sword, but really other than that, I don't really use it. And, the firearms I sometimes use, but I don't use often. The bow, I basically never use. I basically never use the bow other than the beginning of the game. You can say that, this is bad, that, the game, that, I'm not using everything, but that isn't the game's fault. I don't think that's the game's fault. I just prefer using one weapon over the other. And, I actually find it better that even though I don't use them, this game gives you the options. And, they all work in combat, where in earlier games, the hidden, especially Assassin's Creed 2, the hidden blade was, the only weapon you could actually use in combat. So it's, no point having any other weapon. However, a nice feature is that if you counter two enemies at the same time, you get a really cool animation where you counter kill two enemies at the same time. And every time it happens, it feels so cool and so good, because it might not happen every time you enter combat.
You're dead! Have to hit that back! You'll not escape! Come here! Are you stupid? Come back here!
Come back here, you help! I'm going to need help!
Come on! Get up here, lad!
What was that? A boy
So when the game starts, you are not actually playing as Connor, even though, he was on the box art, he was in all the advertisements, but instead we play as Hatham. And, many people have a problem with this, but I've never had a problem with playing as Hatham because, playing as Hatham is not only supposed to help you, better understand what is going on with the time period and also, like, the depths of the world and make you just understand, the world once you play as Connor more. I love playing as Hatham, and I love playing as Hatham, and I think he very much helps you kind of understand the time period and the world and everything before you actually get to Connor. I do love this opening, but I also find it hilarious that this is how Hatham decides to get up to his target. Because, dude, I'm sure people would end up seeing a man climbing up the walls and would point it out no matter how good the play is. Which, I actually wish we could have seen the play if we just wait and not moved. But as far as I know, the game just repeats, the same line. So you don't get to actually listen to the play.
Yes. But then you would have known. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. As am I.
I honestly love how the first kill in this game with the hidden blade isn't what we have come to expect by this point. In Assassin's Creed 1 and the Ezio games, anytime you kill a target, there's a conversation between the two of you, and, your character gives them, like, a farewell before they do. And, this is the case with every Assassin's Creed. And, we all know Ezio's famous phrase that I've criticized Assassin's Creed for shoving it into every single game since, because it makes zero sense why, it will be in other games.
An immeasurable gift. Why refuse it? Not their innocence.
A pity. Non requiescat in pace.
This moment was just stupid. There's no reason this should be in the game. Anyway, however, this first kill, it seems dark. It's dark and cold. Hatham kills him and then takes an amulet and leaves, and the whole time, something just feels off. But now we need to get out. And, while this moment is just walking, I do like the confusion that everyone has because of what Hatham did, and just how no one knows or suspects Hatham did it as he walks out and other people are stopped and searched.
And how was the opera?
Rather dull, truth be told.
Shall we be off then?
Aye. To Fleet and Bride.
By your command.
Fascinating. Gentlemen, I hold in my hand a key. And if this book is to be believed, it will open the doors of a storehouse built by those who came before.
Ah, yes. Those who ruled, reigned, and vanished from the world. Do we know what it is that will be held within?
It could contain certain knowledge. Perhaps a weapon, or something as yet unknown, unfathomable in its construction and purpose. It could be any of these things, or none of them. They are still an enigma, these precursors. But of one thing I am certain. Whatever waits behind those doors shall prove a great boon to us all.
Or our enemies, should they find it first.
They won't. You've seen to that.
I assume you know where this storehouse is?
Ah, Mr. Harrison.
Gentlemen,
How fare your calculations?
I believe the site lies somewhere within this region.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
My apologies. Were that I could be more accurate.
That's all right. It suffices for a start. And that is why we've called you here, Master Kenway. We'd like for you to travel to America, locate the storehouse, and take possession of its contents.
I'm yours to command, although a job of this magnitude will require more than just myself.
Of course. Upon this paper are the names of 5 men sympathetic to our cause. Each is also uniquely suited to aid you in your endeavor. With them at your side, you will want for nothing.
Well, then I'd best be on my way.
I knew our faith in you was not misplaced. We've booked you passage to Boston. Your ship leaves at dawn. Go forth, Hatham, and bring honor to us all.
So Hatham is set to America, which for the longest time I didn't know that the colonies were called America at this time, but I found out that America got its name in the 1500s after Christopher Columbus died, which was a neat thing to find out. And then we are now on a ship, and I absolutely love the song that is sung once the game loads in. So you have to do some missions on the ship as you're sailing to America, and you get a combat tutorial, and then you have to look around for clues of a mutiny, and then you get under attacked by a ship, and you figure out that Miles was the one leading the trail for the ship to follow because of what Hatham did at the beginning of the game in the theater. And honestly, he's extremely easy to fight, which, you know, you can say this was supposed to show just how much better Hatham is and how little of a threat, like, Mills was to Hatham, but anyway, Hatham tells the captain to sail into the storm, and then you have to retie 3 ropes for the sails, and then head up to the mast and open the mainsail, and then you have to save James from falling. Afterwards, when it becomes day, you climb into the crow's nest, and you arrive in Boston. Charles Lee was born on February 6, 1732, in Dunhall, Cushmere, England. His father was Major General John Lee, and his mother was Isabel. Charles Lee did not get along with his mother, and had a temperamental personality and poor physical health as well. Lee would go to a private school where he would become proficient in several languages like, Latin, Greek, French. And, during the 7 Years' War, which was a war between Great Britain and France that were fought in both Europe, but also in the American colonies. However, it was a conflict that basically all of Europe was a part of. Like, Prussia, which is now known as Germany, was siding with the British, and, France and Austria was on the other side. However, in America, it was known as the French and Indian War. And, because of this war, Charles Lee was transferred over to North America to serve under General Edward Braddock. When we arrive to Boston, we meet Charles Lee, who is very excited to meet us and tell us that General Braddock hasn't made it to Boston yet. So, he wants to follow us, and when we head to the general store to get some weapons, we run into Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was a lot of things. He was a polymath, which means he was a writer, scientist, inventor, statesman, diplomat, printer, publisher, and political philosopher. And he was also a very dirty old man that slept with loads of women all the time, and he was the diplomat who convinced the French to help the colonies during the American Revolution. However, afterwards, we go to the Green Dragon Tavern and we meet William Johnson.
Sir, William Johnson. A pleasure. A good lad, if a bit earnest. I'm told you're putting together an expedition.
We believe there's a precursor site in the region. I require your knowledge of the land and its people to find it.
Sadly, my research has been stolen. Without it, I'm of no use to you.
Then we'll find it. Do you have any leads?
My associate, Thomas Hickey, has been making the rounds. He's quite good at loosening tongues.
Well, tell me where I can find him. I'll see if I can't speed things up.
We've heard rumors of bandits operating from a compound southwest of here. You'll likely find him there.
Charles?
Sir.
Which, after meeting him, we
Would
go
just
and
be
meet
off,
Thomas
of
Hickey,
course.
and we have to get Johnson's research back, which very much is a tutorial on how to use firearms, which many people do complain how the first 6 chapters of this game feel like a giant tutorial. But I've never had a problem with this, because it doesn't stop or slow the game, in my opinion. And yeah, I don't mind the game slowly introducing things to the player. So we fight our way out and then return to Johnson, and the next person we have to look for is Benjamin Church. So in order to find Benjamin Church, we have to eavesdrop on people, and we get some clues on where he is. And you know, while I love Assassin's Creed 3 and the older Assassin's Creed games, the stealth in these games are so terrible. I don't think stealth has ever been great. I think Syndicate is probably, in my opinion, the best that the stealth system has been. But that is like one thing I dislike about coming back to the older games, is just how bad the stealth is, and also the eavesdrop missions and the tailing missions. You know, that's something I love that, you know, Odyssey and Valhalla just flat out took out. But you know, those missions didn't come back, and I was happy about that, because I've never liked these missions. So we save Church, and then we have to get John Pitcairn, who is certainly getting chewed out by Edward Braddock.
Were you planning to announce yourself, or did you hope my men
Sir,
wouldn't notice your
if
arrival?
you'll allow me to explain.
Oh, by all means. I should like very much to hear this.
I have not deserted, sir. I am here under Commander Amherst's orders.
Show me a letter bearing his seal, and you might be spared the gallows.
I have no such thing. The nature of my work, sir.
It's the sort of thing best not put to paper.
Hatham.
General Braddock?
I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Wolves often travel in packs.
Master Pitcairn won't be here for but a few weeks. I shall return him to his proper post once our work is finished.
The devil's work, no doubt. It's bad enough my superiors have insisted I grant you use of Charles. But they've said nothing about this traitor. You'll not have him.
Edward, listen to reason.
We're done here. See these gentlemen out.
Well, that didn't go as I expected.
And to think I used to call him brother.
What now? They'll chase us off if we try and return.
We're done with this camp.
Edward Braddock was
As
born
luck
in
would have it.
1695, and his father was
Someday.
Major General
Come along.
Edward Braddock, who was a part of the Coldstream Guards. So I guess Edward Braddock would be Edward Braddock II, I'm guessing. You know, he joined the British military to to be like his father. And in 1736, he was promoted to captain and made major in 1743. And then he became lieutenant colonel of his regiment on November 21st, 1745. We have to follow General Braddock, and then Charles throws horse shit at him, ruining his uniform. Then we have to fight all the Redcoats in order to save John Pitcairn. We now have everyone, so we start our plan to save some Captain Mohawk prisoners. So we kill a British convoy, take the wagon to the fort. Which, this is another thing I have to say I don't like about this game. And that is this part, which is literally just nothing but just sitting there and waiting until you reach the fort. And it is so boring. Yeah, I complained about this stuff earlier, so I won't mention it again. However, this section honestly isn't too bad, to do undetected. And then we go and kill Silas, which Hatham starts to freak out at this spot, which I found funny.
But I believe the two of you are well acquainted.
I made a promise to you, Cyrus. One I intend to keep.
What happens now?
We wait.
Hatham and Charles Lee decide to go to Lexington to see if they can find a mysterious Mohawk woman. And Charles says he has to go back to Braddock, who he was summoned back to, and is upset about what Charles and Hatham did to him. You find a campfire that was put out recently, and your horses run away. But then you find her and are attacked by wolves, and then you have to chase her while she is running on trees. However, eventually, Haytham catches up.
Want?
Well, your name, for one.
I'm Gadzid Zio.
Well, pleased to meet you. God's day.
Just call me Zio.
Dio.
Zio.
Dio.
Now tell me why it is you're here. Where did you get this?
From an old friend.
I've only seen such markings in one other place.
Where?
Well, it is forbidden for me to speak of it.
I saved your people. Does this mean nothing to you? Look, I am not the enemy.
Close to here, there is a hill.
So
Meet me
Haytham and
there,
Zio go into a
and
bar.
see
You have
if
to
you speak the
eavesdrop, and then
truth.
as you are leaving, you have to fight some soldiers at the bar, and then Zio helps Haytham after he has some blood on him. Which, honestly, this is a nice scene. And then they head to Braddock's camp. Once you reach Braddock's camp, you have to sneak in. You have to eavesdrop again, but this time, George Washington is the one talking. Which, don't kill him, the game punishes you for it. So you grab the map and then leave and meet back up with Zio. And then a few months later, she walks in on Haytham and the gang getting drunk at the bar and tells them that it's time. So Haytham disguises himself as a redcoat soldier after borrowing a uniform and confronts General Braddock. And after a chase scene, he has to kill him, and Zio had the perfect chance to kill George Washington here. And she would have killed the first president of the United States, which it's kind of crazy, even though this only happened in the game. Like, it only happened in the game. I don't know how close George Washington was to dying, like, in real life.
Sit. I fear our temple was no more than a painted cave. Although it did contain precursor images and script, which means we are close.
Not close enough, it seems.
We need to redouble our efforts and expand our order and establish a permanent base here. Although the site eludes us, I am confident we will find it.
Truth. Hear, hear.
Furthermore, I believe it is time we welcome Charles into our fold. He has proven himself a loyal disciple and served unerringly since the day he came to us. He should be able to share in our knowledge and reap all the benefits that such a gift implies. Are any opposed? Very well. Charles, come, stand. Do you swear to uphold the principles of our order and all that for which we stand?
I do.
And never to share our secrets nor divulge the true nature of our work?
I do.
And to do so from now until death, whatever the cost?
I do.
Then we welcome you into our fold, brother. Together, we will usher in the dawn of a new world, one defined by purpose and order. Give me your hand. You are a Templar. May the Father of Understanding guide us.
This was the biggest plot twist ever when it happened. The fact that you have been playing as a Templar this whole time and you didn't know it, I love it. You know, while people complain about how long Haytham's section is, this twist is why I don't mind it. You know, it lets you understand what's going on in the world, but also, you know, once you know that Haytham and everyone else you've been recruiting is a Templar, you know, it makes you see their point of view, which, you know, Assassin's Creed has done a terrible job with making the Assassins versus Templar conflict like, you know, a shades of gray and not black and white. Most Assassin's Creed games have, you know, either, you know, they have the Assassins as the good guys, the Templars are just evil bad guys. The only one that didn't was Rogue, which just flipped it. And honestly, really only Assassin's Creed and maybe 4, in my opinion, actually do a great job of questioning who is right. Who are actually the good guys. You know, Assassin's Creed 3 did it best, and that is something I love about this game, especially in later missions where Connor and Haytham work together. So, I should probably mention the modern day storyline, and I'm probably just going to talk about all of them other than the last one. So, just because this is the worst thing about Assassin's Creed 3. It really, every Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed 4 is really the only one I didn't hate, and that's mainly just because that game... That game's modern storyline was making fun of video game developers and basically Ubisoft making fun of themselves. But, otherwise, these stories are just terrible. They have never done anything other than stop you from progressing the story and playing as the character you want. Instead, you do modern day stuff that's just boring. The first one, you have to climb a construction site and then jump and parachute to another building to get a power source for the temple. And the second one, you go to Brazil to go through a UFC fight, and then you have to fight off a man named David Cross, who was an assassin but ended up betraying them, which is a story trope I am sick of in Assassin's Creed. Like, come on, have somebody betray the Templars for once. But, every time you get back to the temple, Juno tells you about, what they tried to do to stop the world from ending, but they failed all the time. Desmond talks about killing Lucy at the end of Brotherhood, and each one that you put in powers up the temple, and you have to put all of these in either after getting them or at the end of the game. So, either way, you have to listen to Juno talking. Which, I know some people like the modern day sections, but to me, it was always the side story. It was always a side story. And, I feel like this way, while the main story is what you play throughout the most of the game, which is the Ancestry storyline. Which, speaking of which...
Undan nizero het stanyo. Awira awa unte yardo jadagun. Toner warda nagarade. Desajera nero niha. Nektiyate huwayata nekerda. Azekante jajerda oni. Nektiya otena degari wastakwe. Agungwe da sun a wahuan nordun kwedzi niot nesa godaya ogun. Zewajerda sriat dizax ne hatham. Raganero kwakwe unte zini togwenyo. Nekzi ohondo yo hawihtun yat de haganerakwe. Zinuer da ojokwa templar alguego tadinyaro darhox. Ne onha at getsanis. Zigat get sun arian a higun sagandanu agat gato zine sagar skanex.
Zit one day star.
Onisa Jerdha.
Ya otana gwanek gwanek.
Radunagedu, the what Richirunyana, Runajagedu, another Ratu than Yokodunis.
So many people complain about the beginning of playing as Connor, and I've never had an issue with it because I feel like this game, it wants you to understand Connor's life. And especially how different it is to Ezio's life. Ezio lived, honestly, I would say a very easy life. He had a very easy life. He was able to, chill, to hang out with friends, hit on and flirt with girls. It wasn't until he was a teenager that, his life changed with his family being killed and him becoming assassin. Which, is a big thing. It's a big thing and a traumatic moment. But him being a teenager, he is much better to he is much better to handle that moment and everything. Assassin's Creed 3 wants you to know that Connor's life is a lot different. He lives out in the woods, he is busy reading books in secret, and he's teaching himself English. And that's probably why he can speak it so well. I don't know. But, he's playing hide and seek with his friends until he is attacked by the Templars. And, you're attacked by the Templars who you just recruited as Hatham.
We have questions for your elders. Only tell us where your village is, boy, and you can go.
Best do as he asks, child.
I could snap your neck, A little more pressure, and pop. The sad little flame of your life extinguished. You are a nothing, a speck of dust. You and all your ilk, living in the dirt like animals, oblivious to the true ways of the world. The wiser among you recognize the shape of the future. They throw themselves at our feet and beg mercy. But not you, it seems. No. You cling desperately to your ways, too ignorant to know your folly. But I am not unkind. And so I spare you, that you may carry word to your people. Let them know the sooner we are given what we seek, the sooner you can return to your pathetic, empty lives. A fair trade, is it not?
What is your name?
Charles Lee. Why do you ask?
So I can find you.
I look forward to it.
Then Connor's village is burned down and his mother is killed in front of him. And Connor is a little kid when all of this happened, so it would have a bigger effect on him. And, he grew up. This threat never went away. Connor's character and personality is probably the biggest thing people complain about. But, I've said, before, I don't think Connor needs a character development where, he becomes happier or, he starts cracking jokes or whatever. And frankly, I stand by that. With how his section starts and, frankly, how Connor's whole life is. It makes sense why, as he gets older, he is just a very angry young man who, he's very reckless at times because, Connor's whole life and people have been under threat ever since he got attacked by Charles Lee when he was a kid. There's a reason he acts that way. So, the hunting tutorial is probably my favorite way this game blends into tutorials and, not slow down the game. And, it would have been so easy to stop the game and have you do this tutorial. But, instead, Connor has to hunt for his tribe. And, it also wouldn't have worked if you did this as Hatham because, Hatham is a British noble. He was a little kid when Edward was killed and most likely never taught how to hunt and most likely lived in cities. However, Connor has been in the wilderness his whole life. And it seems like him and his friends are the ones bringing food for everyone else. Also, Connor is teaching his friend and, frankly, us, the player, how to hunt and not the other way around. We are basically brought into Connor's world and he is telling us what to do. And it's nice to see a Assassin's Creed character who is the teacher and is teaching somebody else rather than the other way around. So tree running is also introduced, and when Assassin's Creed 3 came out, there was a very unique thing for Connor. And it worked and makes sense because, again, he grew up in the woods, so he learned how to do it. Meanwhile, Hatham, he can't. However, now this is it's not as big because you can tree run in later Assassin's Creed games, which honestly I think is kind of lame.
Yo hunja no runge, yungwa de na dayan, danu ne ha arjungwa deri wayani ne ayetia se tani sege unjun hunja.
Are haja di dogane gando ayetiri hune kiswas saha odisas tasirayanda ne.
Yungwa dora zene to na ya de wayer hage. Yungwa ya do dar he un zino gayera ne de tiswa neda. Danu ne dogat to no de wayere yot deru ayungwa jonha se.
Onu jera zitoni yori hawana ne ay dawada den hodu.
Connor talks to the clan mother and is shown the apple that was actually given to the tribe by Abel in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I actually really love this. I love that, because of Eivor, who tells the entire story, meanwhile none of them understand him. But, because of this, they defend it for centuries until Connor can have it and start his journey. And, in which he discovers the assassin symbol, it's basically because of Eivor why Connor becomes an assassin, which I personally just love. I love that detail. Which, this is another thing I love about Assassin's Creed 3. And, that is a fact. You actually could remove the assassins and the Templars and the precursors, and the story would very much stay the same. Because Assassin's Creed 3 is a very personal story. The assassins are basically a side thought, with all basically with all of them being dead, and Connor is the only assassin left once he joins. And, the entire story is Connor wanting to defend his people and his tribe who hurt and killed his mother when he was a kid. Assassin's Creed is at its best when it's, telling a personal story, like, Assassin's Creed 3 or Assassin's Creed 4. Assassin's Creed 4 is about Edward's personal journey, going from, being a pirate to, becoming an assassin. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is Eivor trying to do what's best for his clan and gain alliances and other groups in Britain, and that causes conflict with his brother. And honestly, the fact that these 3 games all have personal stories, and the characters you play as, rather than focusing on the Assassin Templar conflict, in my opinion, makes them my top 3 Assassin's Creed games. Among other reasons as well. I just love this. I also really love Connor's and Achilles' relationship in this game, where, they are teacher and student. Connor argues with Achilles a lot, and, he let his thoughts known, and, the thing I like best is that, they are both right in a sense when they argue. It's never a clear one side is correct over the other, because, both of them are correct in these arguments, and this is honestly why I always say that Connor challenges Creed and, critiques it, while, Achilles, I feel like, upholds it to a fault. Which, this is why I prefer Assassin's Creed 3. We don't know how Haytham took out the colonial assassins. It's a mystery throughout the whole game. And I hate how Rogue just went, no, actually the assassins were the bad guys and the Templars are the good guys, and it was just because Shay betrayed them. Which, I think is just lame, and, it works better if we do not know how Haytham did it. Because, it makes Haytham seem stronger and more intimidating. When we arrive in Boston, Connor actually gets his name from Achilles, and when we head to the general store, we will hear some complaining from some town folk. However, when we return to the town hall, Boston Massacre was very much the boiling point of frustrations of the colonists with the British. And while many people think they had an issue of the British taxing them, which, it's the meme a lot of libertarians nowadays think and say. It was actually more that they didn't have a say in how much they were being taxed or any decision made by British Parliament. I actually don't think they had a problem overall with being taxed because, well, Great Britain has just fought a war against the French, and, they needed to pay it off. The problem is they didn't have any representation in British Parliament. So, as frustrations kept building up, and, on March 5th, 1770, a mob started yelling at some redcoats, and in the chaos, the British started opening fire on the townsfolk. The British troops would be arrested, and then the future second president of the United States, John Adams, would defend them, stating that everyone should be defended. It's because of him. It basically starts how the U.S. judicial courts are run nowadays because of this. Well, I don't think because of this, but he basically started up by the process of it. However, in Assassin's Creed 3, that isn't what happens, and for some reason Connor is blamed for it, which I never understand. But this is basically a way of teaching you the wanted system in this game, which the wanted system isn't great, but I have never thought this system was ever good. But it's simple. There's 4 stages to it. You're either incognito, where no one will bother you, and then there are 3 levels. The enemy will detect you, and then they will investigate you, and then they will attack you on sight. Which, also means they will continue spawning until your wanted level goes down. But, either way, Connor takes his ship back to Homestead and meets back up with Achilles.
After the house has been repaired.
But he's out there plotting who knows what.
And what would you do when you found him? If you found him? You're a boy with a few months of training. He's a man full grown who spent decades honing his skills. If you're going to stand a chance against the Templars, you're going to need these. Go on before I change my mind.
So, Connor finally gets the hidden blades, and now we have to save Terry from the river, and afterwards, they build a house in your settlement, and they will give you materials for your settlement, which I feel like now might be the right time to talk about the homestead missions. In my original 2-part video, I basically pushed these to the side, and that was really because for the longest time, I just didn't care about the homestead missions. But my opinion on them has changed. I absolutely love these missions now. There are some bad ones, like, having to herd pigs into a pen, but, overall, these are all great. And honestly, people complain about the, ranching missions in Red Dead Redemption. Try herding pigs in a Assassin's Creed game. It's even worse. But, you get to find people who will join your community and really start, you start building a group of people, and you see how much they care about each other, especially with one mission having to take out attackers who were sent by a woman's abusive ex-husband, and literally the entire homestead fights off to protect, to protect this woman that has joined the homestead. These missions also are where you kind of see Connor the happiest. You see him drop his guard. He's not as mad and angry as he is in the base game. And you see him lower his guard and enjoy being around these people. Especially how, how he is with everyone else throughout the main quest. Like, not even liking being touched by, a lot of the characters in the main quest. Meanwhile, in these homestead missions, he actually likes, he actually lets them touch him. And he does open up and lower his guard around these people. And you see it, throughout each mission. I do think the biggest problem with these homestead missions is that they aren't blended into the main quest, really. Some of them are, saving Terry, or, when you find Miriam, because Achilles tells Connor to use the rope dart, which is a weapon he just received, shortly before. However, most of them aren't, and with, how much of a different tone these missions have to the main quest, I honestly don't know how you would blend them into the main quest. There are some, the blacksmith who are, he was a previous redcoat who deserted, and you have British troops hunting him down. That, I feel like that could have been blending, and you could have blended that into the main quest once the American Revolution started. But many of these, they are their own side story where, you get to know more about the people in your homestead, and you see Connor drop his guard and be a little bit happy at times with them. However, back to the main quest. So Achilles takes Connor down to see the former ship captain, Captain Faulkner.
Go away! Said go away, boy! Do you not speak the King's English? Oh, I didn't see you there, old man. I'd have set my home in order if I'd known you'd be calling.
The boy's name is Connor. He's here to restore the property.
Restore? Restore? Pardon my manners. She's still the fastest in the Atlantic. Sure, she needs some attention. Minor things mostly, but with a little affection, she'll fly again.
Who is she?
Who is she? Why, the Aquila boy, the ghost of the North Seas.
The boat.
A boat? She's a ship boy, and make no mistake about it. I thought you brought him here to restore order. I reckon he's the greenest thing on the frontier.
Connor, meet me back at the manor when you've finished here.
You said it requires repairs. You able?
She does need work. A ship is a she, boy. And yes, I can refit her, but I'm lacking in the proper supplies. Some quality timber would help me get started.
I can see to that. How long before she is able to sail again?
Just get me the lumber, boy.
Once the ship is repaired, you get your first naval missions, which I'll talk more about later, but I think this first mission is a nice beginning with you sailing to Martha's Vineyard to get cannons and commanders who can use them, and Connor almost gets into a fight with somebody. And after test firing the cannons, you have to fight some actual British ships who are upset at you, and then you head home.
Few weeks, and not even a goodbye before you left.
Sorry.
Well, what are you waiting for? Put them on. Once upon a time, we had a ceremony on such occasions. But I don't think either of us are really the type for that. You've your tools and training, your targets and goals. And now you have your title. Welcome to the Brotherhood, Connor.
So, Connor needs to head back to Boston in order to meet with Sam Adams so he can stop William Johnson from buying his people's land. And at this point, Connor is fully bought into the Brotherhood. And I think to this day, Connor still has my absolute favorite assassin robes. They are just so cool and blend the assassin's look, but also have some like personal things from my Connor's culture. And also they have a very colonial feel for them as well. So, while Connor is heading to Boston to meet with Adams, I want to talk a little bit more about the hunting in this game, which I think is really well done. It's probably the best out of every Assassin's Creed game, and honestly, I would say out of most games in general where you can hunt. Being able to track down a certain animal and then taking them out is great, and it shows you how skilled Connor is. I mentioned in the past how I would have liked kind of like a survival mechanic in the game where you would have to eat. I don't think that anymore, mainly because I do think it would get in the way of gameplay where you would have to stop, get some food, but I think it would have, it could have added something where, there was only a certain amount of animals you could kill. Assassin's Creed 3 shows the natives' culture and how, they respected the land and, they respected nature. Connor even says, only take what you need. However, when you're running through the frontier, Connor can literally kill thousands of animals, and then you just sell them off to the nearest shop for, however money you get. And I think that goes against what Connor's culture and lifestyle is literally all about. In fact, this was a massive problem with, hunters killing animals for sport, and Native Americans saw this as a massive insult. This is exactly, especially what happened to the buffalo, which either was completely extinct, was made completely extinct, or they are almost completely extinct. I don't remember exactly what the state of the buffalo is, but I know they were basically almost driven to extinction, or they are extinct because of people just hunting them for sport. And, they left the bodies out to rot, and Native Americans saw this as a massive insult. So, I think it would have been neat to have some kind of system, in gameplay, that shows Connor's respect for for nature, and for the land through gameplay, and not just through dialogue, so that, Connor will only kill what he needs, and he won't just kill thousands of animals just to sell it off. But you can also find a hunting society quest where you would have to kill like certain animals they'll tell you about. But normally there's nothing different about these. But like, you know, there's nothing different about them than what you would normally hunt. So after Connor meets up with Sam Adams, they see some tax collectors harassing someone. And Connor decides to help, and you can choose to take out more tax collectors, but you don't have to, and you meet Sam Adams at the tavern. So Connor has to go and destroy the tea at the docks, and once that's done, he returns to the tavern. Stefan is pissed and storms out, ready to kill some redcoats, and you have to follow him until you get to the market and find one of Johnson's men.
Bloody hell are you?
Why? You have no right to rob people blind. By decree of the British Parliament or not. British Parliament? I worked for William Johnson.
Johnson? End his suffering cleanly.
Please.
An ear for you. What are the things you lost?
The people listen to me only because I spoke the truth loud enough, which is worth 1,000 times the content of my footlocker. In the English, they can keep my teams.
You did well tonight.
I said I'd buy you an ale when you first helped me. In place of drink, I offer you my allegiance. For what it's worth.
Your aid is welcome, and I am grateful.
So, the Boston Tea Party was a protest where the Sons of Liberty disguised themselves as natives and then dumped loads of tea into the Boston Harbor. And this was kind of like a quiet protest. The British didn't really know what was happening. But that's not the case with Assassin's Creed 3, where you have to defend the Sons of Liberty while they dump tea into the harbor. And, you know, you can either help or fight off redcoats. This mission is one of the few that I do think is kind of bad, but I don't entirely blame Ubisoft because of this, because, you know, I do think it would have been hard to actually make the Boston Tea Party fun, but I do think this is the problem Assassin's Creed 3 has overall, and that's the fact that, you know, big famous historical moments like the Boston Tea Party or later with the Battle of Bunker Hill, they really disappoint when it comes to them, while other missions are a lot better. Either way, the tea is thrown into the ocean. This guy is cheering in the middle of Connor for some reason, and the Sons of Liberty and Johnson's plan is ruined.
Ganondokon, why are you here? Has something happened?
William Johnson has returned with all the money required to buy our land. He meets with the elders as we speak. I have begged him to resist, but I fear he shall have his way unless you intervene.
How is this possible? We destroyed the tea.
The Templars are nothing if not resourceful. You should have heeded my warning.
Please, you have to stop him.
Of course.
So now time to take down William Johnson, and I really love the process of running up to him. And, you know, while Assassin's Creed 3 does mess up with some, you know, historical battles and moments, actually getting to your targets every time are my absolute favorite parts of this game, and I just absolutely love it. But we make our way there, and we kill Johnson.
Oh no. What have you done?
Ensured an end to your schemes. You sought to claim these lands for the Templars.
Aye, that we might protect them. Do you think that good King George lies awake at night, hoping that no harm comes to his native subjects? Or that the people of the city care one whit about them? Oh, sure. The colonists are happy to trade when they need food or shelter, or a bit of extra padding for their armies. But when the walls of the city constrict, when there's crops that need soil, when there's no more enemy to fight, we'll see how kind the people are then.
The colonists have no quarrel with the Iroquois.
Not yet, but they will. 'Tis the way of the world. In time, they'll turn. I could have stopped it. I could have saved you all.
You speak of salvation, but you were killing them.
Aye, because they would not listen. And so, it seems, neither will you.
Connor has to head to Paul Revere's house to find out what John Pitcairn is. However, while Connor makes his way there, I want to talk about some other things about this game. I mentioned you can run on trees in this game, but you can also full on climb them, and these are used as synchronization points sometimes in the frontier, and they can be a little difficult to find out where to climb and not to jump off and kill yourself. In previous games, you had, assassination contracts would give you a target, and you would have to go and take them down. However, in Assassin's Creed 3, you kind of have the same thing, but with the liberation missions. Now, while I do not think these are as good as assassination contracts, they are still fun. The whole thing is about liberating and helping the people, so you have stuff like, saving people from being conscripted into the military, defending a farmer while he's tending to his crops from some British troops, stopping executions, bringing people with smallpox to a doctor so they could be cured, and burning blankets that have smallpox on them. These missions are very simple, and you will just run into them while moving throughout Boston or New York. But while they are simple and easy, I still like these. And if you do enough, you will have a mission with a certain person in the area who will join you and can help you out, like how Stefan is. There are also forts in this game which are fun to do, and the hardest part of these are always just getting in, because you can't climb the walls into them, and if you're caught before you get in, they will close the gate. But normally you would have to take out the captain and then some reserved gunpowder before taking down the British flag and giving the fort to the colonies. So Connor gets to Paul Revere's house, and we get to do his famous ride, in which he warns everybody that the British were coming. And even though Revere wasn't the only person that did this ride, he is the most famous because he is the only one that got caught, proving that no matter what you do, people will only remember you for the things you messed up. But either way, we now have to help John Parker defend off the town of Lexington from the British and begin the American Revolution. On April 19th, 1775, British troops came to the town of Lexington to capture the guns the people held because the British saw the state of Massachusetts as a rebellion state. However, the people didn't agree with this and would fight the British, and this was the shot heard around the world, which started the American Revolution, and afterwards, because of this, many revolutions against Great Britain would happen. The first part of this mission I actually do like, with you having to run in the chaos that is going on, which, there are many moments like this throughout the game. I love all of these moments. And, while Assassin's Creed 3 has stuff like this, I think Assassin's Creed 3 does, while Assassin's Creed 4 has stuff like this, Assassin's Creed 3 does these best, and I always feel, it always felt great, especially later when you have to avoid cannonballs, or, there's fire everywhere. However, later you would have to just go back and forth on a horse and wait until the right time to signal the colonial soldiers to fire, which isn't bad, but it is underwhelming since, I do like this mission. I love most of the missions when the American Revolution starts and you're going after John Pitcairn. They are easily my favorite missions in this game, which I do like that each part of this game basically has its own theme to it. When you play as Hatham, it's set during the French and Indian War, and you get a sense of the conflict between the British and the French. When you start playing as Connor, you get the threat of the Western expansion, the threat of the natives. Felt like Connor being attacked by the Templars, and, with William Johnson trying to buy his people's land, but also, you get the frustration of the colonial people with the British. And, with John Pitcairn, you have the start of the American Revolution and the colonies and the British fighting.
Cordial thanks for this distinguished testimony of their approbation. But lest some unlucky event should happen, unfavorable to my reputation, I beg it may be remembered by every gentleman in the room that I, this day, declare with utmost sincerity, I do not think myself equal to the command I am honored with.
Truly, there is no man better suited to the task.
Leave to assure
Really?
the Congress that
I
as
can
no
think of several.
pecuniary consideration could have
Charles
prevented me
Lee.
to have accepted this arduous employment.
Do I know you?
I would not expect you to remember.
I do not wish to make
someone
any
I want you
profit
to
from
meet.
it. I will keep an exact account of my expenses.
Sorry to pull you away
Those
like that,
I
but
doubt not they
the
will
last thing
discharge,
we need is
and that
the
is
two
all
of
I
you
desire.
coming to blows. Now, Connor, allow me to introduce you to our newly appointed Commander-in-Chief, George Washington.
Ah, so you're the one who saved Sam and John at Lexington.
It was the Patriots who did that. I merely lent support.
As humble as he is brave. We could use more men like you. I'm sorry, but if you'll excuse me, I should attend to Charles over there. He looks none too happy about being passed over for command. It was good to meet you, Connor.
Tell me you have news of Pitcairn.
I'm told he's taken shelter in Boston, where he's guarded by 1,000 redcoats. The only way you're gonna get at him is if we draw him out. Lucky for you, we're launching an offensive against the city in order to do just that. Israel Putnam has been given command of our forces. Present this to him and he'll provide whatever aid you require. You'll find him at the encampment on Bunker Hill.
You have my thanks.
No need. It's the least I could do. Pitcairn's a dangerous man. The sooner we're rid of him, the better.
I would say the same of Charles Lee.
Now that's an altogether different beast.
So after
Let's
we
leave it for
leave the
another
First
day.
Continental Congress and we
Best
see
you
George
head to
Washington for the
Boston,
first time
Connor.
truly in this game, we go and head to Bunker Hill in order to start the Battle of Bunker Hill. And this moment in the trailer of Connor just mowing down wave after wave of British troops is so cool. However, that isn't what the mission is actually like. Which, overall, I don't think it's bad. I still love this mission. It's probably one of my favorite missions in this game, of having to run from cover to cover and then sneaking around the side to kill John Pitcairn. I do wish we could have just done a full frontal assault like in the trailer, though.
Why did you do this?
To protect Adams and Hancock and those they serve, you meant to kill them.
Kill them? Are you mad? I wanted only to parley. There was so much to discuss, to explain. You've put an end to that now.
If you speak true, then I will carry your last words to them.
They must lay down their arms. They must stop this war.
Why them and not the Redcoats?
Do you not think we asked the same question of the British? These things take time. And it would have succeeded had you let me play my part.
Part of the puppeteer.
Oh, better we hold the strings than another.
No, the strings should be severed. All should be free.
And we should live forever on castles in the sky. You wield your blade like a man, but your mouth like a child. And more will die now. Because of that.
I just mentioned how this game is basically separated into different parts. But I don't know what Thomas Hickey's part is supposed to represent. Which is funny because I think this is absolutely the worst part of the game. I guess it's supposed to show that, not everyone in the colony supported George Washington. I mean, this whole assassination plot, it did actually happen. This was a real plan that the real Thomas Hickey did have. But this whole section still absolutely sucks. It is just a long-tailing mission, and you can easily get caught, especially with these kids bothering you and blocking you, and then having to chase them down and you get arrested. You then have to work your way out by teaming up with a man named Mason and make your way to the warden.
That's the idea! Yes! Keep at them! Yeah! That's the idea! Send them home in boxes! Send them home in boxes!
I love this moment while you're moving to the stage and you hear the assassins in the crowd taking out people, but you never see them. You never see them, which I absolutely love, because it honestly shows you how terrifying this actually would be by, the assassins like hiding in the crowd just taking people out. Connor is almost hung, but Connor is saved, and now time to stop Thomas Hickey while he runs towards George Washington.
I've been cleared.
Damn it. I thought I'd at least live to see another day. Shame.
I want answers. Why did Johnson try and buy my people's land? Why was Pitcairn targeting Adams and Hancock? What purpose would Washington's murder have served? Why does your order support the British?
How should I know? The Templars, Lee, the big man, Haytham, they has the money. They has the power. That's the reason I threw in with them. That's the only reason. Sure, they have some sort of vision for the future too. I didn't give a damn about any of that. They can sing their songs about mankind and its troubles. They can make their plans and spring their traps. Don't bother me none. They paid me, so I said yes. Didn't bother to ask who, or how, or why. Didn't care.
You chose to side with men who would rob us of our humanity simply because it was more profitable?
What else is there? I'm not some blind fool to give up all I've got on principle. What is principle anyway? Can you bring it to the bank? Don't look at me like that. We're different, you and I. You're just some blind fool who's always chasing butterflies. Whereas I'm the type of guy who likes to have a beer in one hand and a tea in the other. Thing is, boy, I can have what I seek. Had it even. Your hands will always be empty.
So, I honestly find this as the most interesting thing about Thomas Hickey, which overall, I do not like or care about his character. Hickey is very much just there, and the fact that, the only reason he sided with the Templars is because of money, which meant that the assassins could have absolutely just gotten Hickey to betray the Templars if they just paid him more, makes him, it makes him, that's the only thing interesting about his character. Otherwise, he's just there. He's just a nothing character. Afterwards, Connor has to head to Valley Forge to meet Washington, and this game doesn't show how bad Valley Forge actually was. Not only did they not have any food, they didn't have winter clothes, many troops started deserting, and George Washington had to even execute some people to try and just keep others from running away and saying, like, hey, I'm in charge. I'm honestly surprised at the crossing of the Delaware and the Battle of Trenton on in this game, because how big that moment is in American history. Now, I think the question would very much just be, how would you even make that into a fun mission, and why would Connor even be involved in the crossing of the Delaware? But, the crossing of the Delaware on Christmas Eve was an extremely famous moment, probably the most well-known thing about the American Revolution. We all know the picture. However, even if this game doesn't let you do that, we do have some of the best missions in Assassin's Creed history coming up right now.
Make sure he'd stolen enough for your British brothers?
Benjamin Church is no brother of mine. No more than the Redcoats or their idiot king. Oh, I expected naivete, but this... The Templars do not fight for the crown. We seek the same as you, boy. Freedom, justice, independence.
But...
But what?
Johnson, Pitcairn, Hickey. They sought to steal land, to sack towns, to murder George Washington.
Johnson sought to own the land, that we might keep it safe. Pitcairn aimed to encourage diplomacy, which you cocked up thoroughly enough to start a goddamn war. And Hickey? George Washington is a wretched leader. He's lost nearly every battle in which he's taken part. The man's racked with uncertainty and insecurity. Only look at Valley Forge to know my words are true. We're all better off without him. Look, much as I'd love to spar with you, Benjamin Church's mouth is as big as his ego. You clearly want the supplies he's stolen. I want him punished. Our interests are aligned.
What do you propose?
A truce. Perhaps some time together might do us good. You are my son, after all, and might still be saved from your ignorance. I can kill you now, if you prefer. Excellent. Shall we be off?
Do you even know where Benjamin Church has gone?
I'm afraid not. I'd hoped to ambush him when he or one of his men returned here. It seems I'm too late. They've come and cleared the place out.
We have to work with Hatham while looking for Church, and after fighting off some of his men, we meet back up with Hatham in New York, and I find these missions to be my absolute favorites. Seeing Connor and Hatham working together is great and funny as well, with Hatham immediately going to full-on dad mode, but we also see how different Hatham is when we played as him earlier. He doesn't seem to have a problem at all with killing anyone. Meanwhile, when we played as him, this was something he yelled at Braddock for doing, and now we've seen him change.
Tell me something. You could have killed me when we first met. What stayed your hand?
Curiosity. Any other questions?
What is it the Templars truly seek?
Order. Purpose. Direction. No more than that. It's your lot that means to confound with this nonsense talk of freedom. Time was. The assassins professed a far more sensible goal. That of peace.
Freedom is peace.
Oh no. It's an invitation to chaos. Only look at this little revolution your friends have started. I have stood before the Continental Congress and listened to them stamp and shout. All in the name of liberty. But it is just noise.
And this is why you favor Lee?
He understands the needs of this would-be nation far better than the jobberknolls who profess to represent it.
It seems your tongue has tasted sour grapes. The people have made their choice. And it was Washington.
People chose nothing. It was done by a group of privileged cowards seeking only to enrich themselves. They convened in private and made a decision that would benefit them. Oh, they might have dressed it up with pretty words. That does not make it true. The only difference, Connor, the only difference between myself and
this
those
is probably
you
my
aid
favorite
is that I do
cutscene
not
in this
feign
game, and
affection.
one of my favorite cutscenes in all of Assassin's Creed. It is probably the scene that tells you the most that, it tells you the most that the Templars aren't the black and white villains they've been shown as in every other game. Not only just before this, but after. Also, Hatham is right about what he says. The people didn't choose George Washington as the leader, or any of the Founding Fathers. In fact, there were many people who even said this and thought this about the Founding Fathers. And even if they agreed with the revolution, and they didn't like being a part of Great Britain, they didn't like that the Founding Fathers basically elected themselves and didn't have any say. But after a chase, we finally get Benjamin Church.
Little tricks and traps. Clever! Some of them anyway. I'll give you credit for that. And for the quietude with which you pulled it off. We had a dream, Benjamin! A dream you sought to destroy. And for that, my fallen friend, you will be made to pay!
We came here for a reason.
Different reasons, it seems.
Where are the supplies you stole?
Go to hell.
I ask again, where are the supplies?
On the island yonder. Awaiting pickup. But you've no right to it. It isn't yours.
No, not mine. Those supplies are meant for men and women who believe in something bigger than themselves. Who fight and die that one day they might be free from tyranny such as yours.
Are these the same men and women who fight with muskets forged from British steel? Who bind their wounds with bandages sewn by British hands? How convenient for them. We do the work. They reap the rewards.
You spin a story to excuse your crimes, as though you're the innocent one and they the thieves.
It's all a matter of perspective. There is no single path through life that's right and fair and does no harm. Do you truly think the Crown has no cause? No right to feel betrayed? You should know better than this. Dedicated as you are to fighting Templars, who themselves see their work as just. Think on that the next time you insist your work alone befits the greater good. Your enemy would beg to differ, and would not be
Benjamin Church is like Thomas Hickey, where while overall I don't care about Church and he was just kind of just there, I think he has the best final words out of everyone, talking about how the British point of view, which, you know, in America we never hear about because we just focus on our side, but also public school is garbage, it doesn't teach kids anything. The British did see this as a betrayal. You know, they spent loads of money fighting a war against the French and, you know, protecting the colonists over in America during the French ending a war. And, you know, they lost a lot of husbands and sons fighting in this country, only for the colonies to turn against them when Great Britain started asking them to pay more taxes to recover from the war that Britain just won. And not only did the colonies rebel, but they also got French to come to their side later, which, you know, at this point was, you know, they were probably Great Britain's biggest enemy. However, Connor is about to experience the same kind of betrayal. Connor has to kill his best friend, the men he grew up with, who he played hide and seek with when they were boys, and who was probably the one that helped Connor the most when dealing with the fact that his mother was killed. Connor taught him how to hunt, and when the people became under threat from the Templars, the first person he ran to is Connor. It is very sad. Oh, come on! This is one moment where I feel like the voice acting kind of ruins the moment, because while I do not speak the language of Connor's people, I feel like they wouldn't just say Charles Lee in like full English, and every time it just makes me laugh. You know, make me laugh. Connor will help Washington and the Patriots at a battle of Monmouth, which is very much the same as Lexington and Concord battle, but kind of reversed, where with Lexington and Concord, it starts with you running and then holding your ground. But the battle of Monmouth, it starts with you holding your ground and then running.
Well done, my friend. You have saved many lives today.
Connor? Charles Lee has betrayed you. He forced retreat in the midst of battle, hoping the loss would take the lives of your men and see you relieved of your command. What? I'm sure he will come and spin a tale saying that he was outnumbered or I was somehow to blame. All lies. I will say it one last time. That man is your enemy, and he will not stop until you are dead or dishonored.
Connor's tale rings true. Lee was acting most odd upon the battlefield.
I will investigate these allegations at once.
The time for that is long past.
This must be done properly, else we're no better than those we oppose. Never mind the political ramifications of such an act.
Should you choose to spare Lee's life, then I will take it myself.
However, this
Enjoy
wouldn't be
your
the last
victory,
time
Commander.
Connor will help George Washington.
It will be the last I deliver you. How dare you call upon me after Monmouth?
I have nobody else to turn to. The Culper Ring informed me that West Point's been infiltrated. I believe they intend to murder Major General Benedict Arnold.
I still do not see why you need me.
The loss of such a figure would be devastating to the cause. It must be done without my soldiers' knowledge. The mere idea of the Patriots being breached would be crippling to morale, to the war. Will you do it?
It will be done. But
And I said I was going to let you guys know when I would go to remastered version, and now it's time because it's time to talk about the Benedict Arnold expansion that wasn't in the base Xbox 360 version. I will not talk a lot about this remaster. I already made a video about this, but I don't think it's good. The characters look like dolls and not human. Everything is way too bright. And the 360 version looks just so much better. So when it comes to Benedict Arnold, you would most likely have heard him once in elementary school, and then he never really mentioned again. But, like, honestly, I feel like learning his history, it makes me feel like he was kind of forced into portraying America. You know, he was constantly screwed over, not given the recognition, like, you know, for winning battles, or, you know, he was looked over for promotions, and then he went to the British. However, even once he betrayed the colonies and sided with the British, not only was he hated by the colonies, but also the British, because, you know, even though he was on their side now, he was still a traitor. I say all this because, frankly, the discussion around Benedict Arnold, I think, is more interesting than the entire DLC around him. And it almost feels like Ubisoft forgot to put this in and then made a short DLC later. But honestly, it didn't need to be made. Like, I feel like it was just pointless. It, like, you know, mainly just eavesdropping and tailing missions, but that's it until he escapes.
Keep running, you letters! We did it! Well done!
Connor.
Arnold was behind this, but he escaped.
If you did not catch him, nobody could have. West Point is secure, and Major Andre will hang for his crimes.
And Arnold?
We'll try to find him, though I have my doubts. Whom can we trust now? The Patriot heroes are betraying us.
So back to the main story. But first, Desmond's dad is kidnapped, and time to do the final modern day section, which perfectly shows why Assassin's Creed should never be in modern day. And we save Desmond's father.
You killed him. Daniel was like a son to me. A sickly son, perhaps, but one full of promise. He accomplished so much, and so well, that now you've taken him from me, from us, like the ashes. Like Lucy, we want to help the world, Desmond.
Connor has to help with the Battle of Chesapeake Bay, and now it's time for me to finally talk about the naval missions, which, overall, okay. You know, they are mainly all the same, with you having to defend a boat until you take out all the enemies, but you do have, like, an optional Templar target with Biddle, who was the guy Connor almost got into a fight with when you got the guns for the killer. And after chasing him, you have a boss fight, but it's a terrible boss fight, and you take him down. However, back towards Chesapeake Bay, Connor defends the French and then take down a man of war, and the French agreed to help him infiltrate Fort George. And now time for probably the most controversial moment in this game, which is Hatham's death.
Surrender, and I will spare you.
Brave words. I'm about to die.
You fare no better.
Even when your kind appears to triumph, still we rise again. And do you know why? It's because the Order is born of a realization. We require no creed, no indoctrination by desperate old men. All we need is that the world be as it is. This is why the Templars will never be destroyed.
Don't think I have any intention of caressing your cheek and saying I was wrong.
I will not weep and wonder what might have been. I'm sure you understand. Still, I'm proud of you in a way. You have shown great conviction, strength, courage. All noble qualities. I should have killed you long ago.
So, on December 4th, 2012, the book Assassin's Creed Forsaken was released, which is a book that tells you Haytham's point of view from when he was a little boy. We see Edward's death and him growing up, becoming a Templar, until his death in Assassin's Creed 3. Overall, I think the book is okay. It does change things, especially once it gets to the events of Assassin's Creed 3. There are some small changes, but there are the two biggest changes I do not like at all, and kind of ruined the book for me, in my opinion. The first is when Connor and Haytham are talking about Zio, and I love the scene. I love the scene in this game because it's very much make it seem like Haytham, while he was most likely known about, while he most likely knew about Connor's tribe being attacked, he didn't know Zio was killed, and this scene shows he is sad that she is dead, that his son is blaming him for it, and it's clear that he actually cared about her, but him being a Templar became first for him.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, you're sorry. I found my mother burning alive. I'll never forget her face as she sent me away. Charles Lee is responsible for her death by your order. And you're sorry.
It's impossible. I gave no such order. I spoke the opposite, in fact. I told them to give up the search for the precursor site. We were to focus on more practical pursuits.
In Forsaken, however, this whole moment was treated as just Haytham trying to manipulate Connor and not caring that Zio was killed. And, makes it seem like Haytham never cared about her, which I think is completely wrong. But the biggest one is when Connor and Haytham fight in Fort George. So this is probably the biggest change that happens in the book, with the first one being that Fort George isn't even being shelled by the French, so Connor isn't wounded by a cannonball, and the fight lasts a lot longer than how it is in the game. Then once Connor stabs Haytham, instead of how it is in the game where it starts with Haytham looking down at Connor and then switching instead, Haytham is leaning against a wall, and Connor is holding his hand while Haytham says what, he says, before he dies, which both Connor and Haytham wouldn't do this. While I do think both Connor and Haytham did start to care about each other, they both wouldn't do this. And, how it was in the game was much better, how they would actually react. And, there's a whole made-up moment of Connor having to avoid British troops who run in and try to kill him. Meanwhile, at this point, Connor is very wounded and should not, and, he can barely move, which, he should not be able to do that at all. But now to actually talk about the game. The biggest thing is that many people say that Haytham forgot that Connor had a second hidden blade, but I do not think he did. I feel like the scene shows that Haytham was expecting Connor to not have the energy while he was choking him, but I also don't think Haytham really wanted to kill Connor, because I do think the game does show he does start caring about Connor, and I do think the moment where, he is hurt at, the reveal of George Washington's betrayal, it is shown that he is hurt by Connor in this mission. And it feels very genuine. It feels like he is actually hurt by Connor, telling him to shut up, and Connor wants nothing to do with him. And, probably allowed himself to be killed rather than having rather than having to kill his own son. I think his final words also work amazingly for his character, where, he talks about how he isn't going to weep, but he is proud of Connor and, the man he became. It's like this is the father side of Haytham coming out, looking at the man his son is, and is proud. But then Haytham's Templar side comes out and ends it with saying, I should have killed you long ago, because he's looking at the assassin in front of him, who has single-handedly taken down the Templar order. Or you could just say, I'm trying too hard. I don't know. I like my view on Haytham's death in final words.
My father is dead. Charles Lee now leads the Templar Order in his place. I see now why ours is an eternal war. For each piece taken from the board, another is placed upon it. Back and forth we go. Across the world. Across the ages. Some days mine feels an impossible task. But I cannot afford to be consumed with doubt. The people need me. Now more than ever. I must stop the Templars.
Connor now only has one last Templar, and I think more than any of his other targets, this one was personal. Charles Lee was the one that almost killed him when he was a kid. Probably did burn down Connor's village under George Washington's orders, framed him for the Boston Massacre, almost killed Connor in New York, and is the reason he had to kill his lifelong best friend. Charles Lee decides to just run away from Connor, the whole time ending with a chase scene in the burning ship, which honestly don't know who is worse, Charles Lee or Sterry Crawford from Syndicate, but at least Lee actually does stuff to hurt or impact Connor, unlike Sterry, who just stays in an office and drinks tea. Real Charles Lee did not die like this, but I think this is a great ending, not just for us, the player, getting the satisfaction of killing Charles after everything that has happened, but it is satisfaction for Connor. He has been wanting revenge for years, his entire life, and what makes zero sense if at the end of the game, Connor doesn't Ezio at the end of Assassin's Creed 2 and just goes, no, killing and revenge is bad and wrong after everything that Connor been through throughout the entire game. You know, it just doesn't fit Connor, and I think it is something that I feel like throughout the whole game, with every target, you know, Connor is determined, and, you know, he's focused, he doesn't mess up a lot of times. However, I feel like with Charles Lee, Connor becomes reckless. You know, he becomes reckless, and that's mainly why Charles is able to honestly get, like, one over Connor all the time, other than the ending when Connor chases him down. I also love how Charles accepts his fate. He doesn't fight back. He literally looks at Connor with a look like, good job, kid. You won. And with that, Assassin's Creed 3 is over, with a pretty bittersweet ending. And, you know, if you don't do the homestead missions, it becomes even more bittersweet. Yes, at the end of the game, Connor took down all the Templars, yet lost all of his people, was betrayed, and his father figure and mentor, Achilles, has died. However, by doing the homestead missions, there is a little bit of hope, because, you know, he has the people in his homestead who he can rely on, and rebuild the colonial brotherhood. I mentioned how you could remove the Assassins and Templars from this game and nothing would change. And I do still think that, because Assassin's Creed 3 is all about Connor's fight for his people. But also, you know, the birth of the United States. And while, you know, the game lets you see the colonial side and believe in the movement and fight for freedom, you also see the bad things about, you know, the freshly new United States that is beginning to form. And, Connor calls this out many times. Throughout the game, he will constantly say what they're doing isn't enough or question why do a certain thing. And all that is wrong, only to get pushback from the people he is talking to. Connor is very much someone that doesn't just go along with whatever is thrown at him. He's constantly questioning and pushing back. Not only the Founding Fathers, but Hatham and other Templars, even the Assassins. Sadly, we never got another game with Connor. And out of every Assassin's Creed character, I feel like he's the one most forgotten by Ubisoft. And at most, getting a small reference to him in an audio tape in Valhalla and a VR game where you can play as him, but that's not enough. After getting 3 entire games with Ezio, where we saw him go through his life, learn and grow, and then the next character we play as only gets one game, and that's it. And you get one game that I don't even feel like fully gives him fully gives him what we as the players should. I feel like we should know more about Connor's character. We don't even know what happened to Connor, unlike every other Assassin's Creed character. At most, we know he has a daughter later in life, and that maybe his wife left him and he died alone, which we don't even know how he dies or how old he was when he died. But we can't trust his information either, because we learned this from Abstergo, who are literally the Templars, so they absolutely would lie and say that Connor's life ended terribly. But again, we know nothing. We know nothing about Connor. We don't know what age he was when he died. We don't know how he died. We don't know what happened to his life. So when it comes to Connor, basically absolutely nothing is known about him after Assassin's Creed 3. And as someone who loves his character, he is my favorite assassin in all of Assassin's Creed. It just upsets me, since we get non-stop stuff about Ezio. Meanwhile, Connor is forgotten. But anyway, that's Assassin's Creed 3, a game I absolutely love. And while it isn't perfect, and there are things about it I don't like, it is still my favorite Assassin's Creed game and one of my favorite games ever made. I know nowadays everyone treats Assassin's Creed as a joke, but I love this franchise. And, I don't think this franchise is as dead as everyone says it is. Even with Ubisoft looking like they're about to go out of business, I honestly might end up getting Assassin's Creed Shadows, even with all the controversy around the game, because I do want to try it, and I do still want to support Assassin's Creed. And, no matter what everyone on the internet says nowadays about the franchise, which, honestly, I feel like they've been saying ever since we stopped playing at Ezio. I don't believe really I don't believe anyone on the internet where they talk about Assassin's Creed being dead, because I feel like ever since we stopped playing as Ezio, people have been saying Assassin's Creed is dead. Either way, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time. Oh, wait, I forgot to talk about the modern day storyline ending. And, the actual ending of Assassin's Creed 3, which, it sucks. Yeah, it may not come as a surprise since I hate the modern day storyline, but I don't like the ending. Since, it always focuses on the modern day, and honestly, I think every Assassin's Creed has a terrible ending because of this. While I think the ancestral characters that you play as for 99% of the game, I like their endings. I normally like their endings, even Connor's bittersweet ending in Assassin's Creed 3. But I always dislike the modern day ones. And while I wish they would just stop with the modern day, I know they can't, because this has always been a big part and the DNA of Assassin's Creed. But anyway, after getting the key, Desmond goes and unlocks the temple, talks with Juno and Minerva, and tells him that if he lets the world be destroyed, then he will become the savior and be able to rebuild the world, and he will be viewed as a god whose words will be used first for love, but then will be used for murder and killing. Desmond decides to sacrifice himself, and by doing so, Juno is set free, the world is saved from the end of the world, and I just don't really care about the modern day stuff. It's something that, while I know is a big staple of Assassin's Creed, I just wish they would stop, but, they can't with the modern day stuff, and unfortunately, it makes me dislike every actual ending of Assassin's Creed games. And I know there are people who love the modern day storyline, and they were upset that Desmond died, and they're upset by the current state of it. I just don't care about it. I've never cared about it, and it unfortunately makes every actual ending of Assassin's Creed just completely awful. While for me, the ending of Assassin's Creed, or the ending of the ancestral storyline, the bittersweet ending for Connor of the last scene of him taking down all the pictures and removing the axe. Edward meeting his daughter while departing classes playing in Assassin's Creed 4, or Eivor taking over the Raven clan at the end of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. To me, those are the actual endings, not the modern day stuff. But the modern day stuff is a part of Assassin's Creed, even if I hate it. But anyway, that is Assassin's Creed 3. And, again, it isn't perfect. There are things I dislike about the game, but I absolutely love Assassin's Creed 3. And, remaking my 2-part video on this game was a lot of fun. Which, the 2-part video I made in the past was very much a video defending it, because I think the game has gotten some love. I still think it is very much hated by a lot of people for really no reason other than the Ezio games were beloved. They still are. And then here comes Assassin's Creed 3, which it has a completely different tone, focuses more on the main character. It has a much more personal story than the Ezio games do. Which, for me, it makes going back to the Ezio games kind of I don't like that about the Ezio games, that they don't dwell enough into Ezio himself, I feel like. And I'll get more into that when I talk about the Ezio games. But this was a lot of fun. I don't know if I'll do this for other videos. I don't know if I'll do it, but this was fun to do. Either way, I'll see you guys on the next video, whatever that may be.